لله الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا ومرشدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ويسألونك عن المحيض قل هو أذى فاعتزلوا النساء في المحيض ولا تقربوهن حتى يطهرن فإذا تطهرن فأتوهن من حيث أمركم الله إن الله يحب التوابين ويحب المتطهرين نساؤكم حرث لكم فأتوا حرثكم أنى شئتم وقدموا لأنفسكم واتقوا الله واعلموا أنكم ملاقوه وبشر المؤمنين ولا تجعلوا الله عرضة لأيمانكم أن تبروا وتتقوا وتصلحوا بين الناس والله سميع عليم لا يؤاخذكم الله باللغو في أيمانكم ولكن يؤاخذكم بما كسبت قلوبكم والله غفور حليم صدق الله العظيم. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our creator, our sustainer, the one who enables us to live and the one who will bring us back to himself on the day of resurrection. He is the one who provides us with all of our food, all the air that we breathe, all of the water that we drink. And he is the one who has allowed us to be from the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He gave us iman, so he honored us once. And then he made us from this ummah, so he honored us once again. And then he gave us the tawfiq to live as Muslims, subhanallah. And he brought us into his house. And he gave us the tawfiq to sit in a gathering where we hear from his words. And we should be grateful for this. And no matter how much gratitude we show, it can never be enough. And we've been hearing from Surah Al-Baqarah, the surah of the cow. We heard the story of the cow many moons ago. And in this surah, Allah Ta'ala told us about the believers, He told us about the disbelievers, He told us about the munafiqeen, He reminded the Muslims and also the Banu Israel, the children of Israel, of the various things that Allah had done for them, so that they might remember, so that they might take heed, and so that then we might take lessons from the mistakes that they made too. And then Allah Ta'ala gave us some commandments, because of course, when this surah was revealed, we were at a stage in the Islamic history that the Islamic State was being formed. The Muslims had been in Medina Munawwara for about 2 to 3 years. And so now their iman had been established during their time in Makkah, and now they needed to be taught how to live, how to behave. And then we heard some ayat where Allah Ta'ala commanded the Muslims to defend against all external problems, external enemies. And so the Muslims were required to fight to defend Islam and their iman against all of these external enemies. And then of course the Muslims reflected upon themselves and their society, and they saw many problems. And so then they asked the Prophet ﷺ, they reflected on these problems and they came to him and they asked for guidance. that how should we behave regarding alcohol, regarding gambling, what should we do? And so then Allah Ta'ala, through the revelation, gave guidance to the believers about how they should conduct themselves regarding these things. They asked how they should spend their excess money. And so they were told that they should spend it on their families. They should spend what is extra and not what they need for themselves and for their own families. So these were all problems within their society and questions about how they could be better Muslims. And so this is something that we should also reflect upon. That we should always be worrying about how we can become better Muslims, how we can improve. And if we have any questions, then we should ask those people who know. And then we heard from Allah Ta'ala the type of person who a person should marry, and a person who is better than, what sort of person is better to marry compared with others. And so we heard, وَلَعَبْدٌ مُؤْمِنٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكُمْ, that the Muslim slave, a male slave, is better in the sight of Allah than the free man who may have much wealth, but he is a non-Muslim, he is a polytheist, he is someone who worships idols. That slave is better, even though in society he has a lesser rank. Even then, to Allah, he holds a greater rank. And so he is more worthy that you should marry your daughter to him than this disbeliever who has much wealth and a great status. And similarly with the slave woman who is a mu'mina, she holds a greater rank than the mushrika who is a free woman and she has great beauty and great wealth. And then Allah Ta'ala told us, أُولَٰئِكَ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى النَّارِ, those people, although they have great rank in society, because they have disbelief in their hearts, they call you towards the fire. Of course, they're not obviously calling you towards the fire, but they will call you towards actions and beliefs that will drag you to the fire. وَاللَّهُ يَدْعُو إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ وَالْمَغْفِرَةِ بِإِذْنِهِ, and Allah is calling you towards Jannah, towards gardens, Jannah, وَالْمَغْفِرَةِ, and forgiveness with His permission. وَيُبَيِّنُ آيَاتِهِ لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ, and He, Allah, is making apparent, He is opening up and clarifying His signs for you and for them, for the people, for all of mankind, so that they might take heed, they might take a lesson, they might reflect upon this and then put it into their hearts. So Allah Ta'ala continues with this advice. And again Allah Ta'ala says, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ, and they ask you. And they ask you. Because the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were asking him. And there were certain things, remember the context, there were Banu Israel, there were Jews living in Medina at the time. And traditionally they had been seen to be more knowledgeable than the Arabs, because they had had the books, they had had the revelation, they had the Torah. So they were seen as more knowledgeable. And the Arabs before Islam came didn't have this revelation. So if they had any doubt or any questions, then they would then go to the Jews and ask them. So in a sense the Jews also looked down on the Arabs because of this. Because they saw themselves as more valuable, more precious. They saw themselves as the chosen people of Allah Ta'ala. And they expected the last prophet to come from amongst them. And of course Allah Ta'ala chose for the last prophet to come from the Banu Ismail, who were of course the Arabs, instead of Banu Israel. And so then we know that the Jews had knowledge, they had the Torah, they had the revelation, but there were certain things that they believed that weren't in line with what Allah Ta'ala wanted. And this was because perhaps their book had been corrupted through the ages. And also there were certain commandments that Musa alayhi salam and the Anbiya that came after him received that were no longer applicable to this ummah. So what the Jews at the time did is when a woman was menstruating, then she would be required to leave the house and stay somewhere else. So separate to the family, separate to the husband altogether. And she would only be allowed to come back in the house and live with the husband once she had been purified, once the menstrual bleeding had stopped. And this was what the Jews did at the time in Medina, and this was what they encouraged the Arabs at the time to do, because this was seen as best practice, that this is what a person should do. And so of course the Arabs weren't sure if this is true, what should we do? And the Muslims, they didn't know either. And so then they asked, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْمَحِيضِ, and they ask you regarding the mahid, regarding the menstruation. What is it? قُلْ هُوَ أَذَى, tell them that it is a difficulty, an inconvenience. It's not an evil that some cultures at the time or even now might believe. It's not that a woman is captured by a jinn or something like this. There's nothing like this. This is a natural occurrence that happens every month, and it is an inconvenience. And it can be painful, it causes difficulty, of course, to the woman. And of course, because of this, فَاعْتَزِلُوا النِّسَاءَ فِي الْمَحِيضِ, so stay away from the women when the menstrual bleeding happens. Now, what this means isn't what the Jews at the time were doing, which is literally staying away completely, but rather only Allah Ta'ala is only saying that you can live with them, you can eat with them as well, but you mustn't have sexual relations with them. That's the only thing that you can't do. Otherwise you can live with them, sit with them and so on. There are no other problems. Because the Jews at the time, not only did they make them leave the house, they wouldn't eat with them either. فَاعْتَزِلُوا النِّسَاءَ فِي الْمَحِيضِ وَلَا تَقْرَبُوهُنَّ حَتَّى يَطْهُرْنَ, and do not approach them in that way until they become purified. So once their bleeding has finished and they have had their ritual shower. فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَ, and once they have purified themselves and cleansed themselves, فَأْتُوهُنَّ مِنْ حَيْثُ أَمَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ, then you may come to them from where Allah has commanded you to. So meaning that the anal route should not be used, because this is haram. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ التَّوَّابِينَ وَيُحِبُّ الْمُتَطَهِّرِينَ, surely Allah loves the people who return to Allah. They do tawbah, because when a person does tawbah, he is returning to Allah. A person, when he is displeasing Allah, he is running away from His mercy. But then when he thinks, no, I have displeased my Lord, I should repent, then what he is doing is returning back to Him. And so Allah loves those people who return abundantly. They keep returning, because we all make mistakes. And as much tawbah as we might do, we will always still keep sinning, we will still continue to make mistakes. This is the way Allah has created us. We are weak. And so Allah Ta'ala loves those people who continuously return to Allah. وَيُحِبُّ الْمُتَطَهِّرِينَ, and He loves those who purify themselves. So those people who do not indulge in any action that is impure. And that can be physically, as has been described here, but also spiritually. Anything that displeases Allah Ta'ala is of course an impure action. So here we learn a lesson, that the people who we might consider to have more knowledge, they may well tell us something, but of course that if we don't fully trust them, then we should check first. Look how the Sahaba did. They heard things from the Jews. They saw what they were doing. And although they knew that yes, they have had revelation and they do know a lot, we should still return to the Prophet ﷺ and get the final word. And this is how we should be. Even if we think someone has more knowledge, but we don't fully trust them, we're not quite sure of where the knowledge has come from and so on, we should inquire further. We should check before we act upon it. Allah Ta'ala says elsewhere in the Qur'an, in Surah Al-Hujurat, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِن جَاءَكُمْ فَاسِقٌ بِنَبَإٍ فَتَبَيَّنُوا. If a corrupt person or a person who you don't fully trust or believe comes to you with knowledge, with news, then don't just accept it straight away. فَتَبَيَّنُوا. Check first. Check to see if that is actually true. Inquire further. Because it's possible that that person might have given you news about some people, bad news, that will anger you, and then you will go and take revenge on those people, and it was out of ignorance, بِجَهَالَةٍ فَتُصْبِحُوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلْتُمْ نَادِمِينَ. And then after you've taken revenge and then you realize you were wrong, then you will regret. So, ask first, check first, inquire first. And this is what we see the Sahaba did here. Because they weren't sure what to do with their wives when they were menstruating. So what is allowed, what is forbidden. They weren't sure, and so Allah Ta'ala clarifies here. نِسَاؤُكُمْ حَرْثٌ لَكُمْ. Look at the language Allah uses here. Your women are land of cultivation for you. They are a place where you can sow your seed and then watch the crops grow. Subhanallah. This is how Allah Ta'ala describes our women folk. فَأْتُوا حَرْثَكُمْ أَنَّا شِئْتُمْ. So, approach your women, approach your land, approach this land where you will grow your crops from whichever route you wish. Subhanallah. Look at how Allah Ta'ala uses this language to explain this difficult concept. وَقَدِّمُوا لِأَنفُسِكُمْ. And send forth for yourselves. So send forth your seed so that then children might grow. And then, of course, your family will continue in the future. So send forth for yourselves. But also, of course, Allah Ta'ala doesn't say, send forth so that you might have children. He keeps it open. Send forth for yourselves. What does that also mean? Send forth your good deeds for the akhirah. So think of the future. Don't just think about the here and now, don't dwell on the past. Think about what you are going towards. And there's a famous line of poetry in Urdu. मैं फ़लसफ़ी से क्या पूछूं कि मेरी इब्तिदा क्या है? मैं फ़लसफ़ी से क्या पूछूं कि मेरी इब्तिदा क्या है? मैं इस फ़िक्र में हूँ कि मेरी इंतहा क्या है? That what should I ask of the philosopher about where I came from? Was I an ape? Did I come from a monkey? Did I come from some other lesser being? Or was I created from Adam alayhi salam? Why should I ask a philosopher of this? I won't be asked about this on the Day of Judgment. I should be worried, and I am indeed worried, about what my ending will be. Where I will end up. Will I end up in Jannah or Jahannam? This is what we should be worried about. And so Allah is saying, وَقَدِّمُوا لِأَنفُسِكُمْ. And send forth for yourselves. And we hear all the time reminders about once we die and the people who have buried us, they will all walk away. They may stand at the grave for a while, our beloved people, our loved ones, our family, our friends. They may stand for 10, 15 minutes, maybe an hour. They may come back every day for a few months, maybe even a year, who knows. But ultimately, it's all on you then. You are on your own, with your deeds, whatever you send forth. Your wealth, you think it's yours, but then afterwards, once you die, the only wealth that is really yours is what you have sent forth for yourself by giving in charity, for the sake of Allah Ta'ala. And so we should be worried about what we're sending for ourselves in the future. وَقَدِّمُوا لِأَنفُسِكُمْ. So send forth for yourselves. So look how Allah Ta'ala is talking about children, how we should send forth so that we might have more children, but at the same time, he's bringing this into it as well. That's send forth good deeds so that they might benefit you. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّكُمْ مُلَاقُوهُ. And fear Allah, have taqwa of Allah, because remember Allah is watching you, He's listening. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّكُمْ مُلَاقُوهُ. And remember that you will meet Him. So again, reiterating this fact, that send forth for yourself, because on the Day of Judgment you will meet your Lord, and you will be held to account for your deeds. So be ready and know that you will meet Him. There's no doubt. وَبَشِّرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And give glad tidings to those people who have belief, who have iman. So here it's worth noting the language Allah used. And we should bring this into our lives too. We should be very careful about how we use our language. Allah Ta'ala is not shy. He doesn't shy away from the truth. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَسْتَحِي مِنَ الْحَقِّ. Allah does not shy away from what is true. He tells us what is true. He guides us in all matters, but in a proper way, in an appropriate way. At no point here have we heard any evil talk or any words that have been used inappropriately that we might think, oh, this doesn't sit well with me. This is the word of Allah, and so He is showing us how to use our language. And look how He describes our women, that they are land of cultivation, where you sow your seed and then watch the crops grow. And so then approach your land of cultivation from whichever way you want. And this may be standing, sitting, lying down, as we see in the books of fiqh and in the hadith. There is no problem in this. But of course, as I said, the anal root is forbidden, it is haram. And there was a misconception at the time that the Banu Israel used to say, that if a man comes to his woman from the rear approach, but not in the anal way, but from the rear approach, then this leads to a child being born that is cross-eyed. And this was something that the Jews at the time used to say in Medina. And Allah Ta'ala makes it very clear here that there is no basis for this. You can approach your women folk from whichever way you want, as long as it's the halal way, and then there will be no problem. And send forth for yourself. So we should be careful about the language we use, in the way that Allah Ta'ala showed us here. وَلَا تَجْعَلُوا اللَّهَ عُرْضَةً لِأَيْمَانِكُمْ أَن تَبَرُّوا وَتَتَّقُوا وَتُصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. We hear a slightly different topic here. Allah Ta'ala is saying, and this is in relation to a story where one Sahabi fell out with his brother-in-law, Nu'man ibn Bashir radiallahu anhu. And he had made a promise, he had said, Wallahi, I will not speak with him, or something along these lines. And of course this is not appropriate, this is not good. One should not stop talking to his brother, one should continue in good relations, especially if one's related to him. And anyhow, beyond 3 days and 3 nights, a person becomes sinful. So then he was encouraged to go against this promise that he has sworn by Allah and to enjoy good relations once again. So here Allah says, وَلَا تَجْعَلُوا اللَّهَ عُرْضَةً لِأَيْمَانِكُمْ. Do not make Allah's name a barrier or an excuse to avoid doing good deeds. So if you've already said, Wallahi, I will not do such and such, when actually that was a good deed to do, but you've said it now. And so someone then says, go on, just do this good thing. And you say, no, I've sworn by Allah I won't do it, so I can't do it. I've promised by Allah. That no, Allah is saying that no, don't use Allah's name in this way. Even if you have made such a promise, even if you have sworn by Allah that you won't do such a good thing, then still break that promise. And then pay the kafara, whatever is due. So don't use Allah's name in this way to then stop yourselves from doing a good deed, and so that it might stop you from fearing Allah and stopping you from bringing two groups of people together again if they've fought. Wallahu Sami'un Alim, and Allah is the all-hearing and the all-knowing. It teaches us something here, which is that we should not use Allah's name as we want. We should be very careful. Allah's name is, of course, the name of Allah. It's worth reflecting on. That this is Allah, our Creator. And we will hear many people who say, Wallahi, such and such, very, very easily. Allah ki qasam, and so on. You know, we hear this all the time. But we should be very careful about this. We shouldn't use Allah's name in this way. But of course, many people have such a habit, and they will have said this many, many times. Allah then says, لا يؤاخذكم الله باللغو في أيمانكم. Allah Ta'ala will not punish you for when you have used Allah's name and you didn't really mean it as an oath. So you said it without really meaning that you're promising by Allah, but you said it. And I remember once I asked a brother, where is about his friend? Where is your friend? I haven't seen him for a while. He said, Wallahi dhahaba ila shughl. Wallahi, he's gone to work. Now, of course, I was going to believe him regardless, so there was no need for him to say Wallahi, but he felt the need to say this, and this was unnecessary. But this is the type of thing that Allah is mentioning here, that He doesn't mean to swear by Allah that he's gone, but he just said it anyway. So if a person does say it without really meaning it, then Allah Ta'ala won't punish them for it, and He won't capture them for it. وَلَكِنْ يُؤَاخِذُكُمْ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ قُلُوبُكُمْ. But He will capture you, He will catch you for what you mean by your hearts. So if you truly mean, Wallahi, you're swearing by Allah, such and such, then if you then break that promise, then you have to pay your due. Because of course, that would be a sin. Wallahu ghafurun halim. And Allah is the oft forgiving. So, and we can see how forgiving He is from this. That even though a person might be using Allah's name inappropriately, still Allah forgives. Halim, and He is most patient with His servants. Again and again we sin, we displease Him, we do things that are not good, and still Allah Ta'ala continues to forgive. Allah is so patient with us. So we should be careful. And of course, Allah's name, we should be very careful about using it. And these tongues that we have, we should keep them pure. And we've already heard about the importance of language. We shouldn't curse with these same tongues that we do the dhikr of Allah with. And we also know that if we are going to swear by anything, then we can only swear by Allah. We're not allowed to swear by something else. And we'll hear many things. A person might swear by his mum's life, or swear by something else that is very holy. Some people might say, I swear by all that is holy, and so on. These are all things that have come from outside of Islam. And whoever swears by anything other than Allah, then he has done shirk. Of course, we hear in the Qur'an, Allah Ta'ala swearing by certain things. And we've heard this many times, wal-fajri, wal-duha. Various places Allah swears by certain things. But of course, this is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who is swearing by them, and this is to show their significance. So if He says, wal fajri, by the time of Fajr, Allah is swearing, then what that means is that the time of Fajr is very important, it's very valuable, and so we should value it. And so here, Allah Ta'ala is telling us that even if we do swear by Allah's name, we shouldn't just use it here and there as we want. We should be careful. Also, we learn in this ayah, وَلَا تَجْعَلُوا اللَّهَ عُرْضَةً لِأَيْمَانِكُمْ, that we shouldn't find excuses. This is one excuse a person might use, that I have promised, I have sworn by Allah that I won't do this thing, even though it's a good thing. But generally speaking, we should be careful about finding excuses when it comes to doing something good. If we've been asked to do something, then we should try our best to do it. We shouldn't look for every excuse under the sun to stop ourselves from doing this. And inshallah, in the following weeks we'll hear more about some other rulings about women. So we've been hearing about how a person should approach his wife, and now we will hear also about some of the rulings of talaq.